Hello everyone, I'm Ravi and this is the third part of Excel functions. So in this tutorial, we're going to look at count functions, statistical functions and some logical functions. So first we're going to look at count functions. So count function counts the number of cells that contain numbers and counts numbers within the list of arguments. We can use count function to get the number of entries in a number field that is in a range or an array of numbers. For example, if I want to count the numbers in this range, what I can do is I can type equal count and then within brackets I can give the relevant range. So then press enter and you will get the count in this range. In this formula, actually the general formula is like this, which I have highlighted here, and in this count function you have multiple arguments. So as you can see here, you have value 1, value 2, and you can give up to 255 additional items or cell references, or you can just give a range like I did. So important thing to note here is this value 1 is required. That means you can't keep inside the bracket empty. So if I do this, it will raise an error. So you have to give some cell address inside the count function. So I will explain some things about the count function, and I have typed a range with different data types. So I will use this range to explain things about count functions. So here I have texts and numbers and logical values and even errors. I will explain count functions using these characters or cells. First I want to talk about is arguments that are numbers, dates or text representations of numbers. For example, a number enclosed in quotation marks like this. All of those types are counted by the count function, and logical values and text representations of numbers that we type directly into the list of arguments are counted. Arguments that are error values or text that cannot be translated into numbers are not counted. That means these are not counted in the count function. And if an argument is an array or reference, only numbers in that array or reference are counted. Empty cells, logical values, text or error values in the array or reference are not counted. That means if I select this range, it will not count the empty cells or these errors or any logical values like true or false. Those will be not counted using the count function. Yeah, if I want to count logical values, text or error values, I can use count a function. So I will explain about these things later. If I want to count only numbers that meet certain criteria, I can use count ifs function. Then I will explain more about these things. Actually, these are called statistical functions. So Microsoft Excel provides an array of useful statistical functions. Let's begin with some of the basic yet extremely powerful functions. You will find that you are using the basic statistical functions 90% of the time, and the rest 10% of your time is taken by intermediate and advanced functions. The functions that I talked about, the count function, count a function, those are also statistical functions. Count function I already explained. We use the count function when we need to count the numbers of cells containing number. So we can use to count numbers. Remember, you can't use this function to count texts or any other format of characters. So then count a function. So the general formula is like this. Count a function counts all the cells in a range that are not empty. The function is useful for counting cells containing any type of information, including error values and empty text. So you can use this count a function to count the entire range except empty cells. So I will show that here. If I type count and give this range, it will return 4 because count function only counts the numbers. Here in this range I have only 4 numbers, but if I use count a function and give the same range, you will see it returns 12. That means you have 12 cells inside this range that are containing values. Only these 2 cells are empty. So count a function count any of the cells that contain something inside the cell. Then we have count blank function. This function counts the number of empty cells in a range of cells. And cells with formulas that return empty text are also counted, but cells with 0 values are not counted. This is a great function for summarizing empty cells while analyzing any data. I will show you how that works. Count blank, and then I give my particular range. So you can see it says 2. That means you have 2 empty cells inside this range. So that's what count blank function does. Then we have the countifs function. Countifs are one of the most used statistical functions in Excel. This function applies one or more conditions to the cells given in the range and returns only those cells that fulfill all those conditions. That means you can count the numbers in a range according to a particular criteria. So the general formula is like this. So let's say I want to find out how many widget 4s are inside this range. So what I'm going to do is I will first type equal and then count ifs, and then I have to give my criteria range. So this is my range, and then I have to give the criteria, and my criteria is widget 4, and I will close the bracket and press enter. So that shows I have the widget 4 3 times inside this range. That's how we use countifs function. Those are the basic statistical functions, and now we can move on to intermediate statistical functions in Excel. So we will discuss some of the intermediate statistical functions. So the functions we will discuss here are related to central tendency and dispersion. These functions are very useful in our day-to-day life as an analyst. So first we are going to look at the average function. The intermediate statistical functions which I am going to talk in this tutorial are stated right here. So I have typed all the general formulas for easy reference, and I will talk about one by one now. So first up we have the average function. This is most common function we usually use in our day-to-day lives to calculate the average or the mean. This simply returns the arithmetic mean of all the cells in a given range. If I use average function to find out the average in this range, it will return the average. So it's quite straightforward. And the general formula of the average function is like this. Next, I want to talk about the median function. The problem of outliers can be solved by using this median function. The median function returns the middle value of the given range of cells. The syntax is quite simple. It's like this. So I will show you now. Median, and you have to specify the range and close the bracket, enter. So inside the range, the middle value is 5.5. Then we move on to mode function. For numerical values, mean and median usually suffice. But what about categorical values? Here, mode comes into the picture. Mode returns the most frequent and repeated value in the given range of cells. So if I type this mode and give a range, it shows 4, which indicates that 4 is the most frequent and repeated value in this range. As you can see, we have 4 two times in this range. And next I want to talk about is the standard deviation function. This is one of the ways to quantify dispersion. It is a measure of how widely values are dispersed from the average value. Here we will using the stdev.p, which is this function, to calculate the standard deviation based on the entire population. So the general formula is like this, and I will show how that works. So I type equal stdev.p, and within brackets I will give my range. As you can see, this would be the standard deviation of this particular range. So these are actually kind of mathematical functions. You can easily use this function to directly obtain the values inside Excel. And now we talk about quartiles functions. This is yet another function with abundant applications in the industry. It helps us divide the population into groups. The quartiles.inc returns the quartile of a dataset based on percentile values from 0 to 1 inclusive. So the general formula of this function will look like this. How it works is equal quartile. This inc means included. Within the brackets, first I have to give the array or the range. So I will give this as my array, and then after the comma I have to type which quartile I need. So let's say I want first quartile, then I have to type 1 and close the bracket and enter. This returns the first quartile in the given range. So I will type another example and show you. If I use the same array, give the second quartile, it will return the second quartile. That's how the quartile functions work. Then we come to correlation function. This function is really powerful, and that is not obvious to the naked eye. Correlation function returns the correlation coefficient of two cell ranges. This basically tells us how strong the relationship is between two variables. So the general formula is like this, and I will show the example. And within brackets I have to give the two arrays that I want to find out the relationship. So I will use this range, which is hours studied, and then I will type exam grade as my next range. So what I'm going to find here is how strong the relationship between studying hours and exam grades. So let's find out. Yeah, that means it's actually quite close to 1. That means there is a strong relationship between studying and your exam results. So those are the intermediate statistical functions that I wanted to discuss in this tutorial. Next we will look at logical functions. You might know some of these logical functions, but anyway I will use this diagram to quickly introduce you to logical functions in Excel. First we have the not function. Actually these symbols are not required for you in Excel, so please ignore them. What we are going to look at is this table for each function. This is actually the truth table, and this shows how this function works. This not function, what it does is, if I input something, it will return the inverse of that input. So if I input 0, it will give 1 as my output. If I give 1, it returns 0. So it's quite a straightforward function. Then we will talk about the AND function. In AND function, if we give two inputs, it will kind of multiply and give us the output. So 0 0, it gives 0, and 1 0 again 0, and 0 1 still 0. But if I give 1 and 1, it returns 1. It's like the multiplication. And then we have the OR function. Here it's like the addition function in mathematics. So 0 plus 0, 0. 1 plus 0, 1. 0 plus 1, 1. And 1, 1, this is logical 1. Next function is XOR function. So here, how this function works is this only returns 1 when the inputs are different. So if I give the same input, it returns the 0. But if I use different inputs, it returns 1. This is actually a basic introduction to these logical operations. Excel logical operations or logical functions return either true or false when their arguments are evaluated. Actually, I will give you some facts and figures about Excel logical functions. So, in an arguments of the logical functions, you can use cell references, numeric and text values, or Boolean values, and other Excel functions. However, all arguments must evaluate to the Boolean values of true or false, or references or arrays containing logical values. And then, if an argument of a logical function contains any empty cells, such values are ignored. If all the arguments are empty cells, formula returns a value error. And if an argument of a logical function contains numbers, then 0 evaluates to false. And all other numbers including negative numbers evaluate to true. For example, if I have different numbers here, and if I type AND function and give this particular range, what would it return? It returns false. That's because I have zeros inside this range. So if I make no zeros here, if I give only the numbers, it returns true. So that's how the logical function evaluates these numbers. And then a logical function returns the value error if none of the arguments evaluate to logical values. And it returns the name error if you have misspelled the function's name or attempted to use the function in an earlier Excel version that does not support it. For example, this XOR function can be used in Excel 2016 and 13 only. In Excel 2016, 2013, 2010 and 2007, you can include up to 255 arguments in a logical function, provided that the total length of the formula does not exceed 8192 characters. But in Excel 2003 and lower, you can supply up to 30 arguments and the total length of formula shall not exceed 1024 characters. So those are some facts about logical functions in Excel. Next, I will show you how we can use AND function here. AND function is basically, I have given the truth table to easily understand, and we will look at some examples. So here I have given some names, quantities, and here I have typed and A3 equals bananas and B3 is greater than C3. So let's evaluate this function. First we have A3 equals bananas. So if we check A3, it actually equals to bananas. That means this first condition is true. And the second condition is B3 is greater than C3. If I check B3, it is 30 and C3 is 20. So B3 is actually greater than C3. The second condition is also true. So we have both true and true values inside this AND function. If I check the truth table, it's like 1 and 1. So what would be the output? It is again 1. So I have true and true returns true. That's how the logic applies here. And let's take another example. Here I have another two arguments. So here I have said B3 is greater than 20. B3 is greater than 20. That is true. And in the next statement, I have told that B3 equals C3, which is false. So we have a true statement and a false statement. It's like this, true and false. The output will be false. So you can see here. So that is how the AND function works. I have taken another example here. So I will explain this as well. Here I have given 3 arguments. So no matter how many arguments you give, it will logically evaluate these arguments and return the logical result. Here I have said A3 is bananas. That is true. And then I have said B3 is greater than or equal to 30, which is again true. And then I have told that B3 is greater than C3. So that's also correct. So we have all 3 are correct. The return would also be true. So that's simply the AND function. The examples I have given you are the ways you can give arguments for these functions. So one of the most common uses of the Excel AND function is found in the logical test argument of the if function to test several conditions instead of just one. For example, you can nest any of the AND functions above inside the if function and get a result. Here I will show you an example of if function used with AND function. So here I will type equal if, and inside if I use AND function. I say if A3 equal bananas, and I will give another condition which is B3 greater than C3. That's also true. Both are true. And I will close the bracket. Give some statement for value if true. So this if returns true, I will give some value to return. So if both are true, I want good to return. So I will say good. Else I will say bad. That means if both of these are true, it returns good. But if this AND function returns 0, it will say bad. So here, as you can see, since both of these conditions are true, it says good. But in these cases, for example, if we see this A4 is not equal to bananas and B4 is actually not greater than C4, it is equal to C4. So if this AND returns a false statement, it will return bad. So that's what has happened here. So that's basically how we can use AND function in Excel. Next we are going to look at O function. This function I have also included the truth table. So I will just go with examples. Okay, so here I have typed sample formula. You can see A3 equals bananas. So that is a true statement. And next I have given A3 equals oranges, which is a false statement. So it's like true and false, true or false. Here true, false. The output would be true. So that's what has happened here. You can check on these another, and you can see whether the other statements also. And another example, here I have typed B3 is greater than or equal to 40. B3 is greater than or equal to 40, which is a false statement. Then The next statement is C3 is greater than or equal to 20. This 20 is equal to 20. So it is true. So this is like false or true. 0 or 1, which returns true. So here it says true. So I have given another example also. You can check on that. Next I want to talk about is the XOR or SO function. Actually this function is introduced to Microsoft Excel in 2013, which is a logical exclusive OR function. This term is definitely familiar to those of who have some knowledge of any programming language or computer science in general. For those who don't, the concept of exclusive OR may be a bit difficult to grasp at first, but hopefully I can explain this to you. Actually, this truth table will help you to understand this, and we will look at this example. So here I have used XOR function and given two statements. So first one is A3 equals bananas, which is true statement. So then I have said B3 is less than 20, which is a false statement. Here it is 30, so it is actually greater than 20. So you can see it's like true and false. Here 1, 0, and the output would be 1, which is true. So use this table to understand how this works. So I will explain another example also. Here if you see, it says A4 equals bananas. A4 is not equal to bananas. So first statement is false, and B4 is less than 20. So here it's like 0, which is less than 20. So false and true. Here it's like 0 and 1. The output would be true here. So that's how the XOR function works in Excel. So next we will look at NOT function in Excel. So again I have given the truth table. This is actually the most simple function because it just has the inverse function. So if I give 0, it returns 1. If I give 1, it returns 0. If I give false, it returns true. If I give true, it returns false. So it's like that. So here I have used the NOT function, and I will show you how that has happened here. Here I have said equal NOT, and then within brackets I have given a statement called C2 equals black. So if I check C2, it is not equal to black. So that means the statement inside the brackets is a false statement. So we have false inside NOT. What NOT function does is it returns the inverse of the false, which is true. So whatever the thing inside this brackets, whatever the logical state, NOT will return the inverse of that state. I will show another example. Let's take this one. Here I have said C7 equals black. If I check, C7 actually equals to black. So this is a true statement. But what NOT function does is it says that it is false, which is the inverse of the statement. So the NOT function is actually simple and straightforward. So with that we come to the end of the functions in Excel. So I hope you gained a good knowledge about functions, and thank you very much.